I'm so re-energized and excited to start the day with someone many of us have spent our mornings, middays, maybe even some nights with, getting sweaty, feeling absolutely inspired, and feeling the love through our screens. To introduce our next session, I'd like to welcome my teammate, Kaitlin Bellay, to the screen.
Thank you so much, Ileana, and I totally feel the sweat. I am so in it with this person that we're bringing to the stage today. As you've heard from us, we are in it with you, our marketing partners. As a community, we together are a source of encouragement, inspiration, and innovation for our mutual customers. And no one better embodies those qualities than Ali Love. She's a community leader, entrepreneur, entertainer, and of course, Peloton instructor. We are so excited to have Ali Love here with us today in conversation to share her perspectives on looking to the future, embracing challenges and uncertainty, and creating personal wellness practices, all with love. Please welcome to the virtual stage, Ali Love.
Oh, thank you so much. I have to say, Ileana and Kaitlin, I really appreciate that introduction. I am so thrilled to be back with my LinkedIn family. I want to say that I'm sending you all so much energy, so much love and light in this moment. And as Kaitlin said in the beginning, this is a conversation. And as you know, I love conversation. For those of you, for this being the first time ever meeting virtually, I'd like to say thank you so much for allowing me not only in your homes if you're working from homes, but in your hearts today. This is a dialogue that we're going to have. It's going to look like a monologue because I'm going to give you a little bit of a short keynote, and then Kaitlin and I are going to get into some Q&A. But I encourage, if there's anything that hits home today, whether I say it or it happens throughout this entire program, please remember to write it down and take it with you and allow that internal dialogue to become external dialogue, to share it with friends and family, because that's what it means to not only create community, but ultimately cultivate community. And with that, I will say, I am Ali Love. I am the host of the Brooklynettes. I am the CEO and founder of Love Squad, and I'm a Peloton instructor, not to mention an Adidas Global Ambassador. A little bit about me: Love is my real last name. I'm coming from New York City right now, so if you hear sirens, you're in the heart of New York. I'm hailing from Miami, Florida. I will say that most times when I tell everyone all the things that I do, they often ask, how do you do so many things? I kind of look at my career as an a la carte menu instead of a prefix menu. I like to take a little bit of everything, which is me living in my intersection. And so I encourage all of us, as we think about our careers, as we think about our lives, especially in a pandemic, especially, in racial and civil unrest, think about yourselves as dynamic human beings. All the things you are make you who you are, and all the things you're not make you who you are. And that's truly something that I live by in terms of living in my intersectionality. Also, one of the things that I'd like to bring up, I don't know how many of you are Peloton riders, and if you are new, maybe you haven't heard this, but some of my vets, my OGs may have heard this from me say it a few years back. Anytime I go into a new year, I kind of headline that new year with a statement. I don't have necessarily, I wouldn't call it a mantra because it's not technically a mantra, but maybe it's a couple lines, maybe it's a sentence, sometimes it's just a word. And so a couple years ago, as I was thinking, this all came up sincerely in the last couple of days, what's going to be my 2021 line? 2020 was a year of clear vision. And I have to say, while it has been challenging for all of us, it definitely has opened up a lot of people's eyes, hearts, souls, including mine. So it was a moment of getting clarity around where we are in our lives. And so when I was thinking of 2021, I was like, what is that going to be, that mantra? And then it came to me that this is going to frame the couple minutes that I have your ears and your hearts before we get into the Q&A. Is it took me back to something I used to say a few years back, maybe I think 2018. 2018 was my year of why, stop asking why and start asking why not. And so I pose that question to you all today. Instead of thinking of, well, why me? Let's reframe that together and say, why not me? And that why not me can be applicable to the triumphant times, and it can be applicable to the tough times. So in the times that you are living through hardship, that you are living through struggle, that it is challenging, why not you? If anyone else could handle it, you could handle it. If anyone is ready and capable and willing to get dirty, to go through hell, to walk through fire, why not you? And then in those triumphant times, and I often think in life when you've done your best, whether physically in a race or ride on the leaderboard, my Peloton folks, or you see your kid on stage doing something, whether it's a virtual stage, and you're so proud of them. Why not you? Why not you walk into the room and get that promotion or find clarity or figure out your purpose? Why not you? And so I frame my last couple minutes and really encouraging this dialogue to be centered around, why not you? Why not us? And so the reason I kind of brought this up and anchored this conversation in that is because I often found myself during 2020, the year of clear vision, how I titled it, going through an emotional roller coaster, personally and professionally. You know, I had the pleasure, and I got to give a huge shout out to my Peloton family. I had the pleasure of being able to say, they're like, you got to socially distance. I say, well, I have to tell you, during COVID, I had 25,000 people right here in this living room live on the leaderboard. So we've been able to navigate those tough times. We've been able to celebrate those small victories, those triumphant times. And so as I went through this personal and professional roller coaster, it kind of brought me back to that 2018 self. When I look back and said, that wasn't so bad, that ideology of why not me in the tough times and why not me in the triumphant times. And as someone who is a CEO and founder of a small business called Love Squad, we do women empowerment events. I bring this up during conversation. And it's like, you always ask, well, why me? Why do I have to do this? I don't know, as a kid, it reminds me of doing the dishes. I think I asked every time I had to do the dishes growing up. I'm like, why, Mom? Why do I have to do it? And I think it was like my dad one day, as I complained, said, well, why not you? And I was like, I don't know. I had, of course, as a kid, I had no answer, but it's in those moments and in the past that sometimes we get clarity. Kierkegaard is a philosopher and a poet. And what he says has been really effective lately is that we live life forward, but we understand it backwards. And so as I look forward to 2021, still living in 2020, it kind of allowed me to say, in 2018, and maybe even in my younger days when my dad chimed in and said, why not you doing the dishes? Why not you as you move ahead, as you live life forward? Why not you? And so I encourage us, again, as we frame this conversation and we get into the Q&A portion, to just really reclaim your agency and take back your power. And joining me in doing this, it's not easy, because I got to say, the first thing that comes to mind when something challenging comes up, I always remember that quote of, first I'll cry, then I'll boss up. You can have all the feels like Drake, but it's that when those challenging things arise, like, what's going to be your second thought? Maybe not your first thought. First thought, they're usually the ones that are a little bit self-deprecating, less confident, a little bit more cynical, less positive. It's always a second thought that we have control over. And so as we think of these hardships that potentially could happen in the future, right? Whatever will happen. We don't know. As we stand in our current situation, as we think about these things and we know that we're going to live life forward and understand it backwards, maybe the first thought's going to be negative. Maybe it's going to be cynical. Maybe it's going to be hurtful. But that second thought, as we reclaim agency, reclaim and step in our power, saying, you know what? Why not me? I may not be ready, but when will I ever be? I may not know exactly what to do, but I will figure it out. I may not have all the answers, but I'll ask. I may only have my perspective. I'll crowdsource. You are resourceful. We are resourceful. And so, yeah, why not you? And when it's time to celebrate, please, 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 in my last 30 seconds, if I leave you with anything, I leave you with this. Yes, we can ask why not us in those tough times, but when it's time in those triumphant times and we are faced with something good, let's not just downplay it. Let's celebrate it and say, why not me? Let's celebrate it and know that we are deserving because we're willing to put the hard work in. We're willing to figure it out. And so again, those two things of living life forward, understanding it backwards in the tough times and in the triumphant times, whether it's in your personal and or professional life, sincerely ask the question instead of saying why. Maybe this time, and as we go into a new year, as we celebrate the holidays can be a little bit daunting if you're away from your family. Maybe we ask, why not us? Why not you? Why not me? Thank you.
Oh my goodness, what a beautiful message and call to action right now. I think a lot of people are resonating with some of those messages. One of the follow-up questions I have for you there is, when you say, why not me? Or when you have those moments of struggle, what is it that allows you to say, okay, I've been in my moment of struggle and I'm ready to move on now? Is it a feeling? Is it an amount of time? What are some tips that you have for people making that transition to the why not me and empowerment moment?
Absolutely. I don't know how many people on this call, maybe you deal with anxiety. I'm someone who deals with anxiety, or you deal with depression, or just in a natural cadence of life, you have those dark moments, right? Those tough times, those challenging times that we often highlight in conversation. And I've been in those places multiple times, and I know in just the trajectory of my life, it's going to happen again. And what I've found to work is that I try not to force myself out. It doesn't feel good when, for example, again, I always bring it back to a physical analogy because we can understand that. If you get down right now in a squat and I tell you to hold that squat, after about 30 seconds, you'll be like, okay, I'm shaking a little bit. After about a minute, you're like, Allie, what's going on here? I need answers. After 2 minutes, you and I are no longer friends, right? It gets really, really tough. But it's through that pressure of being in that tough situation, in that dark place, that we build strength, that we build character. And so when I often think about myself of like, how do I get out of it? How do I pivot? I don't force myself. I don't tell myself, I don't put more pressure when I'm anxious to stop being anxious, feel better faster, because we have to allow ourselves time. So I allow myself the time to feel all the feels. And so within that, when I start to see a little bit of daylight, when I start to feel a little lighter, a little pep in my step, a little bit more energy, then I start to remind myself, everything that I'm experiencing, there's no one better equipped to experience it than me. And Kaitlin, you know what I think of? I think of my mom. I said, if I had to been posed a question, should your mom feel this way or go through this, or you? I'd quickly raise my hand. I don't know if you have children or best friends, or if you're community leaders. I would always put myself on the front line as a leader, as a creator and cultivator of community, to say, I'll go first. I'll blaze the trail. I'll chop down the trees. I'll do the hard stuff. And so in those moments of when I feel a little levity, when I feel like I'm coming out of that space, I'll think of, if I had the option of someone I love going through this or me, I'd always raise my hand. That sometimes actually gives me even a little bit more boost. It lifts the spirit even more, just to come back to that foundation of, yeah, why not me? I can do this.
I absolutely feel that squat analogy. There's that perfect moment of when you're like, okay, this is great. And then suddenly it's not so great. And some days that moment happens a little earlier and some a little later. And so depending on, what that challenge is you're facing, I feel like that's totally a perfect analogy. So as Allie mentioned at the top of her segment there, we will be taking questions from the audience today. So please submit them into the Q&A portion. And we have a few minutes for you to think of those ideas for her. We've got a few more curated questions that we had planned. So Allie, you mentioned a little bit about your community, and you've got your hand in so many wonderful different projects and programs. And I think the team here would be super curious to learn a little bit about how you define your community and who are those important individuals or organizations that fill that community for you.
Absolutely. I think it comes back, Kaitlin, to intersectionality. So oftentimes we use this concept of, or I know like my immediate community, which I'll define shortly, will use this concept of intersectionality as an identifier, right? When it comes to pronouns, or when it comes to how we want people to refer to us and articulate us when we're not there. And most times what I've realized is that intersectionality is everything you are, not just your pronouns, or, it's what you do and who you are and how you identify and what you like. And so within that, what I decided for my career is that I love sports. I grew up where my mom played basketball. My dad loved football. We used to have to go to bed early, no matter how old you are. And so growing up, we get to see Monday Night Football when Faith Hill used to do the Monday Night Football track, and we'd watch with my dad. And so sports was an integral part of that and that mindset of how we approach life. And so I always, and as a kid, I was a Heat junior jammer. I was one of the little kids on the court dancing. And so with that, I knew that I always wanted to be in the arena, pun intended. And so my community in New York, I used to be a Knicks City dancer. Then I became the host of the Brooklyn Nets. And my community with Nets are all my Nets fans, my season ticket members that'll DM me, that'll comment on my posts, that I'll see at games. We all become a community in Brooklyn where you love this team. We all identify with this element of sport and with this excitement around this particular team. And then you look at Love Squad. Love Squad is a community where it's for women and non-binary, where you come in and we're talking about your well-being and we're talking about your community, we're talking about your career and how can we offer insight and information through panel discussions, or like we're doing right now, Kaitlin, one-on-one discussions with experts on how to further yourself or better yourself, or at least spark something in you if you want to change careers and how to navigate that transition. And so that's our community. That community, and we called it a squad. When I first thought of Love Squad as a squad, because it's not necessarily a definitive of like, well, if you're a member, this is it. It's sometimes you want to be a part of the squad and sometimes you need a break. And so when you identify with Love Squad and you follow and you come to the events, and then that's how, and you think about being inclusive and you think about bettering your community. That's one of the things. And then the other part of that is our Peloton community, those that are riding with me on that leaderboard, that represent Peloton globally, that love to, again, better themselves mentally and physically when they hop on that bike, that ride with me. And so I identify that community completely differently in terms of them being able to be different, but they all meet in an intersection of entertainment and education. And so that's kind of how I identify the communities that I'm cultivating. And anyone that subscribes to wanting to be a better version of themselves and they follow me on social, I'm down with the get down. Like there are no certain criteria where it's like, well, you're a part of my community, you're not. If you want to make the world better, you want to give a little more than you take, then you're a part of my community, even if I don't know your full name.
That's wonderful. And it's so great to see the breadth and types of communities that you're curating around you. I think one of the things that we talk about as a business is how community builds resilience. And I'd be curious to know if there are any times in your life that you've leaned on your community for that resilience in your life, whether it's professional or personal.
Absolutely. I think that, and I like that community builds resilience. It also is accountability, right? Being able to answer to someone or something usually holds you up to a standard that has been established. And that is very helpful. We all need accountability partners. And that's what we talked about. That's what Love Squad, the word Love Squad is it's your immediate community, those you can call and tap in when you need a little bit more support, when you need a kind word, when you need someone to work out with, your accountability partner or partners. And so in that, this idea of being able to have this community is they keep me honest. They keep me accountable. But most importantly, I will say the beauty of community is the diversity that it brings. I don't know how many of you are part of a small group of friends. I don't know, sometimes they're college friends or childhood friends. If you look around your group and it's very homogenous, the encouragement is that you make sure that there's a diversity in thought. There's a diversity in experience and culture. That's what enriches and makes a community very special. We all come together for the common good of wanting to be our best selves. But this idea of being able to provide a different perspective, of being able to really promote understanding, of tolerance, of gratitude, of honesty, really only comes through and it's only birthed out of diversity. It's birthed out of differences. It's birthed out of the challenge to force our minds and hearts to be a little bigger. It's easy, and I have to say this, it's easy to love those that are like you. I don't know if you've ever met someone like a stranger and you're like, oh my God, you remind me of my cousin. And right away, or you remind me of my mom, or you remind me of my aunt. Right away, you have an affinity towards that person because they remind you of what? Someone you love. Therefore, it's easy to like that person because they remind you of someone who you already love. Now think about the opposite, where you meet someone and they don't remind you of anyone. They don't remind you, you've never met someone like this. It's almost like an enigma a little bit. Sometimes you're taken aback if you're a quiet person and you meet someone like me and I'm all loud and, have all this energy. You're like, whoa, is she real? Is this a thing? Right? You're almost taken aback. In those moments, that's exactly the resilience that you're talking about. To stretch your mind, stretch your heart, to really be understanding, to hold space for people that are different than you. True love, agape love, only shows up sincerely when someone is completely different than you. And that's the reality. If you're able to love those that are completely different just as well as you're able to love those that are alike, like your family or people that remind you of your family or who think the same way as you, that's when true love, honest love is present.
I love that response. And I have to just say, as a member of your Love Squad, you are welcome to call me for accountability any day of the week. My cell phone is on loud right here.
I got you, girl. I love it.
The chat is blowing up. So before we get to the next curated question, there's a really heated debate here. Whitney Houston or Beyonce? What's your favorite go-to track?
This is not fair. That's like, not that Whitney Houston or Beyonce should be equated to anyone's kids, but it's almost like it's similar to saying which kid is your favorite, right? Like that feeling. I think that I love them both. And I will say what's special is that Whitney Houston reminds me more so of growing up with my mom. She would always sing Whitney to me. So doing that, sometimes we do, we have those moments of nostalgia and it happens in different areas of our life. So when I did Whitney and I had the privilege of doing that ride, I will say it reminded, like, I thought of my mom the entire time in Miami. She was like vibing out on the ride too. And so that was a special moment to have that bond. Doing Beyonce, actually I've never met someone in my life that's so hardworking. So she inspired my work ethic and just how I take my social responsibility. So I think that she's influenced me as a professional the most as an artist. And then I think Whitney just reminds me of my childhood. It reminds me of my mom singing, cleaning up on Saturdays and Sundays. Like, it's the hairbrush moment. So they both hold a special place in my heart.
I gotta love those hairbrush moments, right? I think we all have one of those. Even our friend Anthony, maybe a few of those from time to time.
Yeah.
Excellent. So one of the experiences that I personally have with you is you really do inspire excellence in me. And I don't know if you know this or not, but it's one of our LinkedIn values, right? Is to be able to inspire excellence in the people and the communities around us. How do you think about inspiring excellence? What are those key tips? What are those key moments for you in inspiring the communities that you serve?
Absolutely. I think, one of the things that comes to mind when inspiring excellence is that most times people respond better, all of us, including me, respond better to someone who already sees the good in me. So if we think, I don't know how many of you have kids, or if you have nieces or nephews, or if you think back to your childhood, when your parents and or coach or teacher or anyone that was influential in your life came up to you and said, wow, I'm really proud of you, or great job, or you did great. Like, I can't believe, really gave you honest praise and affirmation. And in those moments, you not only feel good about yourself, but then you become receptive to whatever is next. And most times what I found that worked for me growing up, especially moving to New York City alone, all my family lives in Miami, going to college here, is that I responded better when someone gave me the upside of what I've done. Like, you did this really well. And then if they follow by some constructive criticism, or like, here's where I would have tweaked it a little bit, or here's where maybe we can support you a little bit more. And so this concept of excellence, most times, if we receive positive feedback or affirmation, whether it's in our home, with our loved ones and our partners, with our kids, with our family, with our coworkers, it sincerely goes a long way. Now, if you think about it conversely, and I don't know, maybe many of us have experienced this when someone comes up to you and says, why did you do that? Or why are you doing that? I can't believe you did that. You could have done that better. I would have never done it like that. That does not inspire you to want to learn, to grow. It just makes you feel like you're not good enough. Like they're telling you that something that you thought and you decided to do was just not good enough. And therefore somehow you're a bad person. And so in this concept of inspiring people to be excellent, it's really important to me that everyone that I meet, whether it's virtually on the leaderboard, through your leader name or a Love Squad event, or even in these type of situations, is that you're already good enough. There is nothing that I could say right now that can change ultimately who you are, which is someone who's already good enough. When you get on the bike and you may not be able to hit the cadence or the resistance that I'm offering because you're new, doesn't mean you're not good enough or that you're not worth it. You're already good enough. It just takes us working on a certain maybe like quality or enhancing, training for a certain thing, right? Building confidence in areas. Confidence is not tied to your self-worth. Confidence is tied to a skill set. And so in inspiring excellence, it's really just sincerely letting everyone know around me, and often telling myself, I have to do the work myself. Is when I wake up in the morning is like, Ali Love, you're already good enough. You're going to mess up. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to learn. You want to grow. You need feedback, but you're already good enough. And so that's to me is how I approach everyone and everything. Whether you're in my class, you come to my events, or we have an opportunity to have this conversation, you're already good enough.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I think many of us are familiar with that pit in the stomach when they got that reaction. Yeah, and then it's so wonderful to know that, or at least have that mantra to yourself that you are good enough.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good reminder because as humans, right, we can't, as much as we always want to have inspiration of excellence, that there are those moments where maybe you didn't inspire excellence in others. Are there ideas or tips that you have for improving upon inspiring excellence, or when you recognize that you haven't inspired excellence, closing that gap?
Absolutely. And I keep saying absolutely because these are things that I often think about and they literally are on the front of my heart. The best way that I've been able to practice to be a better person and to be the person that I want to be is at home. So I live with my boyfriend, Andrew. We've been together for 10 years. And, our family is a big part of our small little family. Whatever we practice in house. So there's never a moment where it's like, well, I'd only say, this at home, right? There's some intimate things that you share with your family, with your mom, stories that you share, right? But we want to be transparent. So I'm very transparent while maintaining privacy. There are things you share with your family or with your best friends or with your partners and loved ones. But whatever you practice, it's going to show up outside home. I'll give you an antidote. Growing up, my mom, your kids go to school and they meet other kids. One time my mom asked me when I came home, she was like, Allie Love, do you curse at school? Now we all know kids cursing at school is not okay. And I sincerely, like, the honest truth was that I didn't, right? And I still don't to this day. Like, that's not a big part of my vocabulary, to this day. But in this moment, it was like, Mom, like, why would you ask that? Like, I got nervous. I'm like, did I say something? You start to wreck your brain. You're like, did I say something? Did the teacher say something? Does she know something that I don't know? And so I thought about it. I scanned my heart and my mind. And I was like, no, Mom, like, I don't. Like, and the proper answer was probably like, not that I know of, right? I'm like, no, I don't. And she was like, okay. And just took it like that. And I said, that's it? And she's like, yeah, because whatever you practice in school, you'll do it. Like, whatever you practice, you'll slip up and do it in other places in your life. So you'll do it at home. And I found that, and I'll never forget that because I don't know, cursing in my house was a big deal. Like, you shouldn't curse. Like, it was just a big deal. Everyone has their thing. And so I just remember those moments of whatever you're going to do at home and whoever you are behind closed doors, you close that curtain. We all got skeletons in our closet in the sense of we all have stories. We all, have done things that we wish you'd never done. We grew up we made the best decisions with what we had at the time. Looking back, okay, we would change some things, but that's the reality for everyone. The reality is whatever I do at home, I'm going to do in public. It may be a slip up, but it's going to happen. And so when I think of this, me being honest and transparent and being myself and trying to get to the place that I want to be is just I practice at home. I tell my partner, please hold me accountable. If I say something, correct me. And so that would be my sincere, honest feedback to anyone is have your friends, have your loved ones to correct you. Here's some things that I need help with, y'all. I tend to lose my patience. Or I tend to start off giving negative feedback first before I give constructive feedback. Maybe that's what you want to start doing at home with your friends, your family, whoever you call, or if you live with them. Tell them, anytime I give you feedback, just give me a little nudge if I don't start off with the positive feedback. And then you're able to transition that to work. It's not going to happen overnight. And please don't do this. I got caught up in the beginning, Kaitlin. I was like, I'll remember when the time comes. I'll remember when it comes. I never remember. I have to either write it down and or practice it. I never remember.
Yeah, same here. I'm right in the moment with you and staying in the moment. We just have a few short minutes with you, but before we go, I wanted the audience to learn a little bit about Love Squad. Many of the folks on the line here are startup organizations or they're building businesses of their own or innovating. Where did this idea of Love Squad come from and what are you solving?
Absolutely. Shout outs to all of you that are entrepreneurs that have small business, side hustlers, my momtrepreneurs, all of that. Shout outs to you because the work is real. I will tell you really quickly, Love Squad was birthed out of a sheer lack of resources and frustration. As a young woman, I moved to New York City, and in New York, like many places, as you're trying to navigate your career, if you're not in or you don't have the ability to network with the right people, it is really challenging to get advice, to get insight, to figure out what's next, to gather information. And so I got so frustrated that I decided that I didn't want anyone to feel like that. I created this small company called Love Squad. And what I did was I brought my friends who were entrepreneurs or worked in vertical careers and had big titles that I met through someone to come and talk to the community. Those people that followed me on, it started off with just my 3,000 followers on Instagram. I was like, you're in New York, I'm doing a free event, and I'm going to talk to this woman who built her career, and she's going to give us all the details. She's going to spill the tea for free. And so that's what I did. I didn't have money for tickets, and I didn't want to charge people for tickets because why would I, if I didn't have it, I know other people don't. And so I partnered with an event space, got everything for free. You know, I leveraged like being able to post about it or write about it, whatever, to get people in. We sold out in 15 seconds on Eventbrite. Sold out means just like you put your name down because it was free. We had a 75-person wait list. We could not fit that many people in this small space, a free space. And what ended up happening is people didn't want to leave. We only had the space for 2 hours. And I was like, y'all have to go because I'm not paying for this. And I told them we'll be out. And so after that first event, I decided I had something here, that conversation is the catalyst for change. And it's only through having dialogue or listening, having that internal dialogue via listening and having that external dialogue, are we able to make better decisions, decide what we want to do with our careers. And I've noticed specifically with the women in my life that I've met in New York City and grown my network, is that when you feel good about your career and what you do, you end up making better decisions around who you love, how you're going to transition, how many kids you're going to have, and what's next. And that's what I've learned is when you feel good about your career, you feel that you have the power to make decisions in other areas of your life. It's not always in that complete order, but I've learned with my generation, that's actually what I've seen happen. And so we talk about the well-being. When should you get it? We bring in physicians or sex experts or fertility experts to talk about what's happening with our bodies. How often should we do this? What's it like? And then we bring out women in their career, whether they're entrepreneurs or have different titles in different industry. And I have either a panel discussion or one-on-one discussion at a low to no cost. We rely heavily on sponsorships. We do it now virtually. You come in and we give you information. We ask all the questions. Because I know this is the whole purpose, and I'll sum it up with this for Love Squad. If in my life from point A to point B, it took me 3 hours, my whole deal is that I want to shorten that it takes you an hour. I want to give you that much information that you know how to get from point A to point B in an hour so that you're not spending the exact same amount of working hours as I did when I can offer you that insight because I didn't have that access and I didn't have those resources.
Well, how powerful that you have the opportunity to give that to so many. And we at LinkedIn are right behind you. So what we have queued up for you today is we are giving you a gift of $10,000 to your organization for Love Squad to continue the good work that you are doing. We so love what you do. We are so behind you 100% of the way. And hopefully this $10,000 will be able to make an impact to the community that you are growing and nourishing.
I'm like, thank you so much. I'm tearing up. Those of you that are, this is a shock. Like, this is a surprise. I knew that we were like maybe going to do some t-shirts. So I was like, this is exciting. Thank you so much to all of you at LinkedIn. I don't even have the words. I will put it in the email when this is over because I'm getting emotional. The reason I'm getting emotional about this, and I'll tell it really quickly before we hop off, because I know you all have a whole full day, is that I work with a small team. We hire women. We hire women part-time. We do internships. It's a small team of women to do internships part-time. If you graduate college and did an internship and you need a summer job, you work for us virtually. And what we do is try to equip you with the skills and independence to figure things out so that, and I can give you a recommendation for other jobs. So we've had kind of like a revolving door of young talent come in, and I can give them, again, a recommendation to get the job that they want or the next step, and they have the insight. And so to think of when my team, a big deal for us this year is that we were able to contract a women's owned business to handle our apparel business. That was huge. Like, for us to be able to financially support another startup that was started by women, it's just a big deal. So I can't wait to share this for my team. They work so hard, and I'm just so thankful. Thank you so much. We can't wait. Woo. That's awesome.
Absolutely. So the very last question I would have is, do you have any asks of our audience as they leave for today? We so appreciate your time with us and would love to leave them with some final thoughts from you.
Absolutely. I think sincerely, my call to action to all of you, outside, of course, follow me, Allie Ms. Love on Instagram, or if you're interested in Love Squad, lovesquad.com, check us out, Love Squad on Instagram. Sincerely, I would say the personal call to action, the true call to action, if you don't do anything, is can you give 10 minutes of your time to someone else? not a family member, not a loved one, but someone maybe that you is a friend's niece or nephew or them, they, like just someone who is young in the business or in school. Can you give 10 minutes of your time of just telling them anything that you know? Maybe the topic is 3 things that I wish I knew that I didn't know. And if you can share that, whether you decide to post it on your social for everyone who follows you to get as many people, it's a story, but whatever that is, if you can do it 101, whatever works for you, 10 minutes of your time before this week is out to someone you don't know of 3 things that you wish you knew in your business, in your career. And I think that's how we continue to pay it forward. That is truly the Love Squad way right there. Free information to make accessibility, like it's accessible, to make information accessible is really, really what's important to us. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I am personally signing up to that call of action, and I encourage our marketing partners on the line to do the same. Thank you so much for your time today, Allie. We will be following you on Peloton.
Thank you so much. Yes, keep riding with me. Thank you all so much for your time. Thanks to LinkedIn, Kaitlin, Ileana. Thank you all so much. I really, really appreciate it. This was fantastic, as always.
So Ileana, it's so wonderful coming off that conversation with Allie Love. So wonderful to have us with you. I know that I took a lot of thoughts down, and I hope you did as well. And I'm handing it back off to you to continue with our day at Partner Connect. Thank you so much.
I am signing up for that call to action too, Kate, +1. Allie, Kate, thank you so much. I am officially a lifelong fan of Allie Love and her Love Squad. Thank you so much for getting us started on such an inspiring and high note. I definitely got emotional through that. So I was like, get it together, Ileana, get it together before you're back on camera. I mean, that session literally changed the course of my day and probably my week. She shares so many gems around building community and what it means to be resilient, reframing your mindset and getting your mind right as you tackle life, changing up from why me to why not me? Yeah, me, I can do this, right? And she really just inspired me so much. And guess whose class I'm taking later on tonight on my bike right here? You, Allie. Thank you again. We're off to a good start.